Okay, picture this. You tell a computer to spit out 50 completely random numbers between 0 and 1. You hit enter, the screen flashes, and bam, there they are. But here's the real question. What does that data actually look like when we graph it? Is it a perfectly flat, straight line, or is it just a completely jagged mess? Well, by the end of this explainer, you are going to understand the core concept of continuous uniform distributions, the exact mathematical formula for spotting outliers, and, most importantly, how messy real-world empirical data stacks up against pure theoretical math. Section 1. The random number mystery and generating those 50 values.
All right, let's dive right into the lab setup. It's actually super simple. We're using a random number generator to spit out 50 values between 0 and 1 inclusive, and we're rounding them off to 4 decimal places. Now, to really wrap your head around what the computer is doing behind the scenes, I want you to imagine a perfectly fair, completely frictionless digital spinner. When you flick it, it doesn't just click into whole numbers like a board game. No, it smoothly glides and can stop anywhere from 0.0000 all the way to 1.000. Every single microscopic fraction along that wheel has an exactly equal chance of being landed on by the pointer.
Now, once we spin that digital wheel 50 times, boom, we've got our data. But, just staring at a massive list of 50 decimals, not super helpful. So, the very first step in any statistical lab is collecting that data and calculating 5 crucial summary statistics. We absolutely need the sample mean, the standard deviation, the first quartile, the median, and the third quartile. Think of these 5 numbers as our foundation. They essentially tell the numerical story of what our spinner actually rolled. Section 2. Empirical versus theory, how math predicts data. Now that we've got the basic idea of collecting our data down, let's look at the actual math that predicts what should happen. We're stepping out of the messy real world and into the perfect theoretical world. In stats, we use a very specific notation for this. We write it as x tilde u parentheses 0, 1. This is just a fancy way of saying that the random variable x follows a theoretical continuous uniform distribution. The word continuous just means it can literally be any decimal in between those numbers, and uniform means every single value from 0 to 1 is equally likely to pop up.
Now wait, pause right here. This is absolutely crucial, and it's where a lot of students get tripped up. We have to keep 2 totally different worlds separate in our minds. On one side, we have empirical data. That's our 50 randomly generated numbers. It's the messy reality of what actually happened in the lab. On the flip side, we have the theoretical distribution. This is what the pure perfect math expects to happen based on that x tilde u01 rule we just talked about, complete with its flawless theoretical mean and theoretical standard deviation.
Section 3. Histogram visuals and the shape of the data. Okay, let's make this whole thing way easier to digest visually by actually looking at the shape of the data. We're going to build a graph. If we take our 50 random numbers and organize them into an empirical histogram with exactly 8 bars, what do you think it looks like? You might expect a perfectly straight line going straight across the top, right? After all, it's a uniform distribution. But follow the tops of these bars with your eyes. Empirical data is messy. When it's split up into 8 bars, you're probably going to see a really jagged graph. It might have this strange V shape, or it could have huge random humps at either end instead of just going straight across. But watch what happens when we change things up and decrease the number of bins. If we group that exact same data into just a 5-bar histogram, it smooths out all those weird humps. It really starts to look a lot flatter. In fact, if you try to draw a smooth imaginary curve right over the top of this one, it looks much, much closer to that straight horizontal line we expect from a uniform distribution. So right about now, you might be asking, why does just changing the number of bars change our perception of the data shape so drastically? It's a fantastic question. And the reason is that grouping data into different widths either hides or reveals specific variations. When you have lots of really narrow bars, you're essentially magnifying the random noise in our 50 numbers. But by using fewer wider bars, you absorb that random noise and reveal the true underlying shape of the distribution. All right, section 4, the box plot, finding the middle. Let's move on to another visualization and see how this builds up our analytical skills. We are going to construct a box plot. Once you draw out a perfectly scaled box plot with nice straight edges using your 50 numbers, your job in the lab is to compare it to the theoretical expectations. You've got to go line by line here. You compare your empirical minimum value, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, and the maximum value directly against what the pure math predicted. Like, is your median sitting exactly at 0.5? Probably not exactly. You also have to compare the width of the interquartile range, that's the IQR, and the overall shape. This is exactly how we test if our real-world data is actually behaving the way the theory claims it should.
Section 5, the outlier equation and identifying anomalies.
Now let's connect this back to identifying anomalies, because honestly, this is where the math gets super interesting. You might be staring at your box plot right now and wondering, wait, do perfectly uniform distributions even have outliers? I mean, if every single number between 0 and 1 is equally likely, how can any number be an outlier? Well, here's the thing. Whether your eyes think they see an outlier or not on the graph, in statistics, we absolutely must always justify our answer numerically.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how we do it. Here is the step-by-step formula. Grab a pen if you need to. Step 1, find the interquartile range, or the IQR. Step 2, calculate your lower bound. You do this by taking your first quartile and subtracting 1.5 times the IQR. Step 3, calculate the upper bound by taking your third quartile and adding 1.5 times that IQR.
So the crucial point here is this exact rule. Any empirical data point in your 50 numbers that is less than that lower bound or more than that upper bound is a potential outlier. Seriously, it doesn't matter what the histogram looks like, and it doesn't matter if you feel like a uniform distribution shouldn't have them. This formula right here is the absolute unbreakable numerical rule for finding outliers.
Section 6, scale the sample, increasing the sample size.
Before we wrap this up, let's summarize our key takeaways by scaling up our experiment to really see the big picture. Think back to our original 50 random numbers. What if we changed the parameters? What if instead of just 50, we generated 500 random values from our digital spinner? And that leads us right into our final discussion question. If we generate 500 values instead of 50, how does that affect what we expect the empirical data to be, and how does it change the shape of its graph? Well, as you drastically increase your sample size, all that random noise and those jagged humps we saw on the histogram, they basically begin to vanish. The empirical data starts to flatten out and actually match that perfect theoretical expectation much, much closer. This incredible phenomenon is known as the law of large